Who here has heard Solana been called the centralized chain, the VC chain, the meme coin chain, the NFT chain? There's each and every cycle there's a new name. What we're seeing right now is basically the everything chain because it's effectively infrastructure, right? It is infrastructure that allows any developer, founder, institution to access users, capital, and assets on a global scale just using an internet connection and a laptop, right? With code, you can now start moving these assets. And the way you measure an ecosystem in 2025 is very different from how you used to think about these public networks back in 2017 or 2018, right? The days of TVL and on-paper TPS numbers are gone. You can now look at developer growth, app revenue, new assets, and trading volume as objective metrics of usage to see whether people are using networks or not. And on each of these networks, you can see how Solana fares. It's added the most number of new developers. Apps on Solana are actually generating revenue. There's new assets created every quarter, and there's over 300 billion in DEX volume. Right? This is all sign of life on a network. Yes, those assets today may not be the best ones, but you sort of bridge that gap once you have the infrastructure in place. And this is the reason why that happens, right? We don't think Solana is competing with most of the other public networks at this point, at least on throughput and performance, because you can see the numbers. We're doing around 1,000 TPS in production, sort of constrained only by demand. Solana can do way more than that, and it's hoping to compete with NASDAQ, Visa, and some of these networks on these metrics, right? And you can see the usage trends. These are like users actually making transactions in fraud and wallets that are using the network. This is a really important metric that you may have heard about. Has anyone heard of real economic value or REV as a metric? Show of hands if you have. Yeah, it basically goes to show our people, our traders, our transactions, are they willing to pay to use the network, right? And you can see here, ever since Solana has introduced priority fees, tips, that gives you sort of predictable execution. We have a surge in REV, which is the truest sign of demand is that someone is willing to pay to use your product, whereas in most of our industries, the other way around, you pay someone to use your product, right? And the job's not done. I think if there's one thing you take away about the infrastructure side of Solana is that the vision of the founder, Anatoly, is to create a single ledger that can synchronize data at the speed of light, sort of constrained only by the speed of data in fiber around the world, right? So he wants to create a distributed system that works as fast as a single co-located system, limited only by sort of the fiber optic cable and not software, hardware, or anything else. And these are a bunch of improvements towards that end. I'm sure everyone has heard of Fire Dancer. Have folks heard of Alpenglow, the new consensus mechanism? Yeah, I see a bunch of hands. And then so there's a bunch of stuff towards just making the chain as fast and as cheap as possible. IBRL is the roadmap for the engineering side of Solana, right? And I think it's really important. One of the frames that Solana pioneered in 2018 is that block space is not scarce because of supply. Block space is scarce because of demand, right? A lot of networks have sort of pushed the narrative for a while that your block space is expensive because it's scarce and it's sort of constrained on supply. We're sort of testing the thesis that you can be constrained on demand, where you have abundant block space, but you have more sophisticated pricing mechanisms, right? And so on Solana, you have dynamic pricing based on what parts of the network have that demand, right? You should basically think about it like surge pricing on Uber, right? Yes, the roads in Bombay, as many of you would have experienced the traffic today morning. Sorry about that. But you pay more when there is a surge, right? You don't say that Bombay real estate is expensive, and so you just charge more for the Uber like all the time, right? And so you have sort of local fee markets that give you more sophisticated pricing, and you have token extensions which give you compliance on a public network. And I think this is one of the more underappreciated elements of Solana in this side of the world, that you don't need a permissioned chain all the time. You can have a permissioned asset on a public network. You can issue assets on Solana that require KYC, that have restrictions on transfer, that can be freezed and seized as required by local regulations, right? And so you put all of that together and, ironically, you've gone from the NFT chain, the meme coin chain, to the institutional chain now. Because the institutions also realize that, yes, you can do issuance on private networks, But when you want sort of transactions, new holders, when you want new liquidity, you need to go to networks that have users, demands, and apps, right? And so you can think of the kind of permission required on a spectrum instead of thinking of it as private or public. You can have private networks. If you really need a very high level of sort of control on the validators and the nodes, you can do a private network that will primarily control the issuance and redemption of the asset. But then you can do permission tokens on public networks. Who here has heard of Xtalks? Has anyone seen or used Xtalks? Yeah, I see a few hands. I would sort of highly recommend you go and check out Xtalks as a great model for a permission token on a public network, right? Okay, and that is for you token extensions where you can do sort of corporate actions on the network, but you can also have a derivative token that can be more freely traded that does not have the same compliance requirements. And there's a detailed report from the capital markets team at the foundation, literally going step by step on how you issue equities on Solana, how you do the different corporate actions, how you go through compliance, etc. All right. There's the Solana attestation service that basically lets you do KYC and credentialing on chain. And so these sort of come together as primitives, right? You've got local fee markets give you predictable pricing. Token extensions give you permissioned assets, and attestation service gives you KYC. And the three of them put together let you sort of launch institutional use cases on a public network, right? And that's what's happening, right? You have a bunch of institutions. It could be sort of stable coins, money market funds. They're all sort of coming onto Solana. And what's really cool to see if you follow some of the filings from the Solana Policy Institute in the US is that they are now interacting with Solana apps, right? So if there's someone who is launching tokenized, if there's an institution that's launching tokenized equities on Solana, that institution needs a distribution partner on the network, right? Your asset is only as good as far and wide it can travel. And so you have these joint proposals or working groups coming together of an equities issuer teaming up with a Web3 wallet to find distribution for their assets, right? Is also the best platform for fintech because, like I said, with more and more stable coins and payment assets coming on the network, you can literally build a bank with just code, right? And then you sort of decide which market you want to download your compliance into depending on where you're getting users from. But you can build the basic framework of a global bank with just code, which is why, again, a bunch of exchanges that are sort of foraying into this are using and integrating Solana. You got sort of Benji, which is the world's first registered money market fund, is on Solana. Sorry. Has anyone here heard of HiveMapper? I think this one's been around for a while. Yeah, it's the largest deep-in mapping app, has launched on Solana. Venmo has integrated Solana payments, right? Like basically all of this is to say is that you could be an institution, an asset issuer, an app, a consumer app, and you'll still find the users, the liquidity, and the throughput that you need on the network, right? All of this to sort of bring it all back together. I think one of the core theses we've had is to also build the next Silicon Valley on Solana, right? And so for everyone here, if you're builders, if you're founders, and if you want to get involved through building and not through price action, right? Most of our events attract builders. We don't have anything against traders, but that's the audience we go after. How do you where do you find the next Silicon Valley, right? Like there's lore about Silicon Valley that you meet the most ambitious people there, you get venture capital there, there's network effects there, that city raises your ambition. But it's also dwindling down in some ways because of some decisions that the administration is making, because of the way the world is shaping up. And so our bet is that you'll find the next Silicon Valley on the internet. Right? If people have followed, the network school and Balaji Srinivasan's work, we sort of feel that that's going to happen. And we want the Solana network and ecosystem to be the most attractive place for the best talent to sort of come in and learn, earn, build, launch products, launch apps, right? And so you'll see a lot of the stuff that we do is geared towards people who just want to do things and not folks who need permission or who need approval for these kind of things, right? So if that excites you, you should enter the arena. This event is happening at an amazing time because we have the Solana Global Hackathon by Colosseum that's ongoing right now. Has anyone here already heard of it? Has anyone signed up? Show of hands. Okay, wow. Okay, that's I think 1/3 of the crowd. If you haven't, you should definitely go check it out. The reason why the hackathon is built different is because it's run by a venture fund. Right? It's not run directly by the foundation. It's run by a venture fund that is looking to find the next 10 to 15 teams that they can invest in. And so if you win the hackathon, there's a chance you'll get 250K in pre-seed funding, and you'll get to sort of be a part of a global accelerator to launch your product. Okay? And that's the code. If you want to sign up right now, scan it, and you can do that. Thank you.